It doesn't start with shouting. It doesn't start with lies you can clearly see. It starts with a question. A small, harmless-looking question that somehow makes your stomach tighten and your thoughts spin. Years ago, I had a friend. Let's call him Matt. He was charming, always had a story to tell. But sometimes, when things didn't add up, he'd throw out a question like, "Why are you being so sensitive?" Just 6 words, but suddenly I was on the defensive. The focus shifted from what he did to how I felt about it. That's the subtlety of manipulation. Liars don't just lie with statements, they lie with their questions. Questions designed not to learn, but to control. The Stoics understood this game centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius warned against wasting energy on speculation instead of seeking truth. Epictetus taught that our real power lies in controlling our response, not their behavior. But first, you have to spot the trap. In this video, we're going to break down 5 dangerous questions manipulators use to twist reality. The question that shames you for noticing the problem. The one that demands trust instead of earning it. The one that flips the script and makes you the villain. The one that paints them as too pure to lie. And the one that pressures you to drop the truth before it's uncovered. We'll dissect each one. Not just the words, but the psychology behind them. And I'll show you how to respond with the calm clarity of a Stoic. Because when you see through these questions, you take back control of the conversation and of yourself. By the end, you'll never hear certain questions the same way again. You'll know when someone's seeking truth and when they're seeking control. And you'll be ready, not with anger, but with awareness. 1. Why are you so sensitive? It sounds like such a simple question, just a few words strung together. But in reality, it's one of the most common weapons used by people who want to turn the focus away from their actions and onto your reaction. It's not really about curiosity. It's about control. The moment someone says it, the spotlight shifts. Instead of looking at what they did, you start questioning yourself. You start thinking, maybe you are the problem. And that's exactly what they want. When someone asks you this, they're doing 2 things at once. First, they're crossing a line. Second, they're making you feel wrong for noticing. It's a clever way to keep doing whatever they want, while convincing you to stop challenging them. Psychologists have a name for this: gaslighting. It's when someone makes you doubt your own perception of reality. The Stoics would describe it as an attack on the only thing you truly control, your ability to choose your response. If they can make you question what you see, what you feel, and what you know, they can steer your choices in their favor. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that if someone proves him wrong, he will gladly change, because truth is what he seeks. That's the difference. A person who values truth welcomes honest correction. But why are you so sensitive is not about truth. It's about shutting you down. They want you to believe that sensitivity is weakness. But here's the truth. Sensitivity is not weakness. Sensitivity is awareness. It's the skill of noticing the small cracks before they turn into a collapse. The Stoics valued that kind of perception, because you can't live in harmony with reality if you refuse to see it clearly. Imagine you're in a meeting at work. A coworker makes a joke about your abilities in front of the team. You calmly say the comment felt inappropriate. They smile and say, "Why are you so sensitive?" Suddenly, the issue is no longer their disrespect. Now it's about whether you're too emotional. You feel the pressure to prove you're not overreacting. And if you start defending yourself, the original problem disappears. This tactic is ancient. In Rome, politicians would avoid answering hard questions by accusing their opponents of being too emotional or easily offended. By shifting the frame, they never had to defend their actions. Seneca warned about people who pretend to offer advice but actually aim to wound. This is exactly that. The Stoic approach is to stay calm and steady. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to apologize for noticing. You simply return the focus to the real issue. One simple response could be, "I'm not being sensitive, I'm being observant." Does that make you uncomfortable? That flips the frame back onto them. And you deliver it with a calm tone, because manipulators expect panic, not composure. The ability to pause before you respond is your greatest strength. Epictetus said that between what happens and how we react, there's a space, and in that space is your freedom. When someone tries to shame you for noticing something, take a breath. Let the silence work for you, and then answer in a way that keeps your integrity intact. "You trust me, right?" It sounds warm, familiar, almost flattering. But behind those 4 words is one of the oldest tricks in the book. On the surface, it seems like a simple check-in, a way to affirm the relationship. But in reality, it's a trap. Because it's not really asking if you trust them. It's asking you to surrender your judgment without question. A trustworthy person doesn't need to demand trust. They earn it. Day after day, through consistency, honesty, and transparency. When someone says, "You trust me, right?" in a certain tone, what they're really saying is, "Stop thinking. Stop questioning. Just agree with me because I said so." The Stoics would call this an attack on your reasoning faculty, your ability to use logic and perception to guide your actions. Epictetus warned that the man who thinks he already knows everything cannot learn. And that's exactly what this question tries to force on you. A kind of blind acceptance that shuts the door on curiosity. Imagine you're about to make a financial decision with a business partner. You've noticed some missing details in the proposal. Instead of answering your questions directly, they smile and say, "You trust me, right?" In that moment, they're not reassuring you, they're pressuring you. If you say yes, you've just agreed to ignore the red flags you've seen. If you say no, you risk being painted as disloyal or suspicious. It's a win-win for them and a lose-lose for you. This tactic works because humans naturally want to avoid conflict and maintain harmony. We like to think of ourselves as good friends, good partners, good teammates. So when someone frames trust as a yes or no question, the easiest way to keep the peace is to say yes. But peace bought at the expense of truth is not peace at all. It's surrender. Think about the story of Julius Caesar and Brutus. Caesar trusted Brutus, perhaps more than most, and that trust blinded him to the danger until it was too late. The Stoics would see this not as a lesson in paranoia, but in discernment. Trust should be given with open eyes, not closed ones. When you hear, "You trust me, right?" your first step is to slow down. Literally. Breathe. Let the silence hang in the air. Don't rush to fill it with reassurance. A simple, calm reply could be, "Trust is built through consistent actions. Are you asking me to ignore what I see?" That response does 2 things. First, it reminds them that trust is earned, not demanded. Second, it flips the burden back where it belongs, on them to demonstrate trustworthiness. The Stoic practice of apatheia, or calm detachment, is critical here. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop reacting on impulse. You watch. You listen. You evaluate. And only then do you decide. Picture a different scene. You're in a relationship. Your partner has been coming home later than usual. You ask a simple question, "Where were you?" Instead of answering, they say, "You trust me, right?" It's tempting to say yes just to avoid the tension. But in doing so, you give up the opportunity for clarity. A Stoic would remember that truth never fears questions, and honesty never hides from detail. If someone reacts defensively to your curiosity, it's worth asking why. Because a person with nothing to hide will not be afraid of a conversation. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should love the truth and speak it plainly. That applies both ways. If you value truth, you can't allow trust to be used as a shield against it. The people who truly deserve your trust will never make you feel guilty for verifying, questioning, or clarifying. They will welcome it because it strengthens the bond rather than threatens it. So the next time you hear, "You trust me, right?" pause and run it through your mental filter. Is this a genuine question? Or is it a way to end the conversation? Are they trying to connect with you? Or are they trying to shut you down? If you're not sure, don't rush your answer. You can say, "I want to trust you, but I also want to understand. Can we go through this together?" This keeps the door to truth open, and it lets them know that your trust is not blind, it's alive, aware, and earned. The Stoics believed that trust, like respect, should be the natural result of virtue, not the product of pressure. Hold that standard, and no one can manipulate you into handing over your judgment.
3. Are you accusing me of something?
It sounds like a question, but it's really a move on the chessboard. A move designed to flip the power dynamic in an instant. One moment you're asking a fair, reasonable question. The next, you're suddenly the one on trial. This is the deflection trap. Instead of answering your concern, they frame your curiosity as an attack. Now you're the aggressor, and they're the victim. And just like that, the conversation shifts from examining their behavior to defending your intentions. The Stoics understood how dangerous this shift can be. Because the moment you let someone else define the frame of the conversation, you lose control of it. Picture this. You've noticed something strange in a project at work. Missing numbers, unexplained changes. You bring it up in a calm, factual way. Instead of explaining, your coworker looks at you with a wounded expression and says, "Are you accusing me of something?" Now you feel the pressure to step back, to soften your words, to make sure they don't feel attacked. And while you're busy defending your tone, the actual issue, the missing numbers, slips further away from the spotlight. This tactic works because most people instinctively want to avoid conflict. We don't like being seen as unfair, hostile, or paranoid. A skilled manipulator knows this, and they will use it to derail the conversation before it reaches the truth. Seneca once wrote, "The first step towards wisdom is knowing when to be silent." But silence in Stoic thought is not surrender, it's strategy. It's the ability to pause, observe, and decide how to respond without being dragged into someone else's emotional theater. When someone throws, "Are you accusing me of something?" at you, the goal is to trigger a reaction, fast. They want you to say, "No, of course not," and backpedal. They want you to lose your footing so they can regain control of the narrative. The Stoic way is to hold your ground without hostility. Look them in the eye and allow a moment of stillness. Then, calmly say, "Should I be?" That short response does something powerful. It refuses to accept the frame they've given you. It puts the question back where it belongs, on whether there is actually something to accuse. Imagine this in a personal setting. You notice your partner's phone lighting up repeatedly late at night. You ask who's messaging them. They fire back, "Are you accusing me of something?" If you rush to reassure them, you've just let the real question disappear. If you respond with calm curiosity, "I'm asking for clarity, not making accusations," you keep the conversation anchored in the search for truth. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of precision in both thought and speech. by not allowing someone else to redefine your intent. You keep that precision intact. The trick is to separate emotion from observation. Your observation is about facts, what you've seen, heard, or experienced. Their emotional reaction is theirs to manage, not yours to fix. A person acting in good faith will answer your question directly. A person acting in bad faith will try to turn the spotlight on your motives. If you remember nothing else, remember this: an honest person is not afraid of scrutiny. The Stoics believed that a virtuous life can stand examination from any angle. If someone resists that examination, it's worth asking why. So when you hear, "Are you accusing me of something?" take a breath. Don't rush to fill the silence. You are not obligated to prove your innocence for simply asking a question. Hold steady. Keep your voice even. Redirect the conversation back to the facts, and never let someone's performance of outrage erase your right to seek the truth. The power isn't in winning the argument in that moment. It's in refusing to abandon clarity for the sake of someone else's comfort. Would I ever lie to you? It sounds almost tender, a little dramatic, the kind of thing someone might say in a movie, with a hand over their heart and a look of pure disbelief. But don't be fooled. This question is not a sign of innocence. It's a performance. When someone asks, "Would I ever lie to you?" they're not actually asking for your answer. They're planting an image in your mind, an image of themselves as too honest, too noble, too good to ever deceive you. They want you to feel bad for even entertaining the thought that they could be lying. And here's the paradox. The very fact they're asking this question should make you more cautious, not less. Because if a person is truly honest, they won't need to convince you. Their actions over time will have already spoken for them. The Stoics understood that appearances can be dangerous. Marcus Aurelius warned against being dazzled by charm or smooth words. He urged himself to look at the thing itself, not the performance around it. In this case, the thing itself is the situation that made you question them in the first place. That's where the focus should stay. Imagine you've been working with a colleague on a project. You discover that a key document was altered, and the changes seem to benefit them more than the team. You ask about it, and instead of explaining, they lean back and say, "Would I ever lie to you?" In that moment, they've completely sidestepped the question. Now you're not talking about the document, you're talking about their supposed character. If you take the bait, you'll start defending your belief in them instead of asking for the truth. This is misdirection, plain and simple. It's like a magician waving one hand to distract you, while the other hand hides the card. The Stoic approach here is to resist speculation. Epictetus said that we should concern ourselves with what is, not with what we imagine. When you answer, "Would I ever lie to you?" directly, you're forced into imagination, guessing about their moral purity, weighing memories, and wondering about their intentions. Meanwhile, the concrete facts go untouched. A better move is to redirect. Let there be a pause, then say, "That's not the question. The question is, would I know if you did?" That short sentence shifts the ground back under your feet. It puts the conversation back on reality, on whether the truth can actually be verified. Picture another scene. You're in a relationship, and you've noticed patterns, small inconsistencies in their stories, details that don't quite match up. One night, you bring up one of these moments, and they respond with wounded eyes, "Would I ever lie to you?" In that moment, they're counting on your loyalty to silence your doubts. They're hoping your desire to preserve the relationship will outweigh your need for clarity. But the Stoics would remind you, relationships built on truth can withstand honest questions. If the bond is real, it won't crumble because you sought clarity. Marcus Aurelius would tell himself to strip away the story and look at the raw facts. Are there inconsistencies? Is there evidence? What actually happened? Those questions matter far more than the emotional theater in front of you. This doesn't mean you respond with hostility. Stoicism teaches composure. You keep your tone level, your words simple. You can say, "I'm not questioning your character. I'm asking about this specific thing. Can we go through it together?" If they're acting in good faith, they'll welcome the chance to clear things up. If they're not, they'll try to dodge again. Either way, you'll have your answer, not from their words, but from how they handle the question. The important thing is to remember your purpose. You're not there to win an argument or to humiliate them. You're there to understand the truth. And the truth doesn't need defending with grand speeches about character. It reveals itself in consistent, verifiable actions. So the next time you hear, "Would I ever lie to you?" remember, it's not your job to prove or disprove their moral perfection. It's your job to return the focus to the facts, to stay anchored in reality, and to refuse to be pulled into the fog of performance. In the end, the Stoics would say that a person who truly values virtue doesn't need to announce it. They live it. And if someone feels the need to convince you with words alone, that might be your first sign to look closer. 5. Can't we just move on from this? It sounds reasonable, even kind, like someone who wants to stop fighting, put the past behind you, and focus on better things. But when it's used by a liar, it means something very different. It means, "I don't want to answer your questions. I don't want to be held accountable. I want this conversation to end before the truth comes out." This is the exhaustion tactic. They're not trying to resolve the issue. They're trying to wear you down. They know you've been asking questions. They know you've been paying attention, and they're hoping you're tired enough to just drop it. The Stoics understood the danger of being rushed into silence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." There is no deadline for truth. The moment you accept moving on without resolution, you're giving them the exact escape they wanted. Picture this. You've noticed discrepancies in a friend's story. You bring it up gently, pointing out the parts that don't match. Instead of explaining, they sigh and say, "Can't we just move on from this?" You feel the pull to agree, because continuing the conversation feels heavy, maybe even uncomfortable. But if you agree too soon, you walk away with no answers, and the same uneasy feeling in your gut. This tactic works because humans naturally want relief from tension. We're wired to avoid discomfort, and manipulators know that if they make the conversation unpleasant enough, you'll want to end it, even at the cost of clarity. The Stoic response is to resist that impulse. Epictetus taught that we should stand ready in all situations, meaning we stay steady even when we feel the urge to escape. That doesn't mean you drag the conversation into a fight. It means you hold your ground until you have the understanding you need. Imagine a workplace example. You're in a meeting, raising concerns about a deal that doesn't look right. The person responsible cuts you off. "Let's just move on from this." Everyone else in the room is looking down at their notes. You can feel the social pressure to drop it. But you also know that if you do, the deal will move forward unchallenged. A calm, Stoic-inspired reply might be, "I'm willing to move forward once I understand what happened, but not before." That single sentence makes it clear. You're not driven by stubbornness, but by principle. The difference is subtle, but powerful. You're not refusing to let go out of spite. You're refusing to let go without the truth. And when you frame it that way, anyone watching will understand that your position is about integrity, not ego. This tactic also appears in personal relationships. A partner might say, "Why can't you just let it go?" after you bring up something that hurt you. If you agree just to restore peace, you've sent a message. You can be pressured into silence when things get uncomfortable. Over time, that silence becomes a habit, and the relationship's foundation gets weaker and weaker. The Stoics valued peace, but not peace built on illusion. They would rather face a hard truth than live in a comfortable lie. For them, moving on only made sense when the problem had been faced directly and resolved with honesty. There's also a hidden danger here. When someone says, "Can't we just move on from this too early?" they're robbing you of closure. You're left with questions that never get answered, doubts that never get cleared. And that uneasy feeling doesn't fade. So the next time you hear this question, pause. Notice what it's doing to the conversation. Ask yourself, is this about genuine resolution, or is it about avoiding accountability? If it's the latter, don't let the conversation end there. You can answer calmly. We can move on once we've addressed what happened. This keeps the door open, and it tells them you won't be rushed out of the truth. Remember, truth has no expiration date. It's not less important just because time has passed. The Stoics believed that the pursuit of what is right should never be abandoned for the sake of temporary comfort. Holding your ground doesn't make you difficult. It makes you anchored. And in a world where most people will give up the search for truth at the first sign of discomfort, that anchor is exactly what keeps you from drifting into someone else's false version of reality. We've walked through 5 questions. Each one looks small on the surface, but each one is a carefully shaped tool, built to turn the conversation away from the truth and toward their control. Why are you so sensitive? Meant to shame you for noticing. You trust me, right? Meant to pressure you into silence. Are you accusing me of something? Meant to flip the script and make you defend yourself. Would I ever lie to you? Meant to create an image of innocence instead of dealing with facts. Can't we just move on from this? Meant to exhaust you until you let go of the truth. The danger in these questions isn't just the words. It's what they do to your focus. They pull you away from what's real. They shift your mind from evidence to emotion, from observation to defense. And once you're defending yourself, the truth is no longer in the spotlight. The Stoics saw this clearly. They knew that control begins in the mind. If you can hold on to your clarity, no one can truly manipulate you. But clarity takes discipline. It takes the willingness to pause when you're provoked, to breathe before you answer, to keep your voice steady even when the other person tries to stir up chaos. Seneca said that if a man knows not which port he sails to, no wind is favorable. The same is true in conversation. If you don't know your purpose, if you don't remember that you're there to seek truth, you'll be blown off course by every emotional gust they throw your way. So here's the lesson. Before you answer any loaded question, ask yourself, is this person seeking truth or control? Are they opening the door to clarity or are they closing it? If the answer points to control, don't get pulled in, redirect, stay calm, keep your focus on facts, not performances. And remember, you don't owe anyone blind trust, rushed forgiveness, or silence in the face of dishonesty. A Stoic doesn't fight for dominance. A Stoic stands for what is true. And in a world full of noise, that alone makes you unshakable. When you can sit in front of a liar, look them in the eye, and calmly see through their game, you've already won.